because this whole thing is empty. Well, it's not empty. There are musical instruments here. But there are no people up here right now. Ryan is out of town this weekend, and so we're going to just know how much we miss him and hug his neck next week and tell him how much we missed him. But don't worry, we've got a great service in store for you. And I had to get Benita to go round up the lobby lurkers, because you know how it is. We got a whole pile of people who will hang out in the lobby waiting to hear the piano, right? And they're not here. They're out there right now cackling and having a good time. Can you hear them? They're having a big old time. So I think we ought to call for them. What would be our call? Like a duck call?
Let's go, girls.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Let's go, girls! And boys. All right. So here we are. So there's gonna be a little bit of a different order of service this morning, but that's okay. We are gonna survive because we can do change. It's not a problem. So, pardon me?
Is your mic on?
Is my mic on, Tom? Is my mic on? It should be. I believe it is.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me pick this up in the meantime. How about that? So come on in, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. I want to take care of a little bit of housekeeping before we get started today. So usually at the end of our service, we do our offering. Right? At the end of our service, we take our offering. We have our opportunity to give back to our spiritual community, to be in the flow of good. We talked just about 2 weeks ago about abundance and prosperity and money and how to be in the flow and how we give with appreciation, intention, and resolve. And that giving is between us and our higher power. And I told you then that one of our jobs as leaders in this community is to help you visualize, get an image, put a picture to the giving that you give that goes into the general fund, which sometimes feels like it just goes into a space that we can't put a picture to. So I said then that we were going to do, first Sunday of the month, we were going to focus on the people, the staff members that are paid by your generous donations. The second week, we were going to focus on the places, because I'm an English professor and we've got to do nouns here. The people, the places, which is this space that is ours, and taking good care of it and maintaining it and paying for the utilities and expanding when we're ready. And then third was the things like the coffee and the toilet paper and the computer paper and the computers and the whatnot that needs to be purchased. And then, of course, number 4, the fourth week was community and the ways that we market ourselves and let ourselves be known in our community, to be a force for good in our community. And have the money to show up and have a booth at Pride or have a booth at the Galactic Expo or wherever it is where we think our people might gather, right? And so this is the 5th Sunday. I did not plan for that. So for the 5th Sunday, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw in something a little bit different. Even though the first Sunday is people, and that covers our staff, I'm going to let this 5th Sunday stand for our children. Because when you give to the general fund of this church, you provide opportunities to buy more supplies for the children, to create more opportunities for special events. I mean, Stephanie is like an idea factory back there. She's got more ideas than you can imagine, but sometimes we just have to find the funds to do it. So I want to remind you that that is one of the places that your generous donations go. Remember that you can go to our website. We don't pass a plate here. There's a QR code back there above the blue vase. You can put cash in the blue vase. You can give in all these different ways. You can go to our website, unityofmusiccity.com, and hit the donate button, and we so appreciate it. Now, even though Ryan's not here, we have some amazing music for you today. A few weeks ago, how long ago would it have been? 6 weeks maybe, 6 weeks or so. I heard a song on TikTok, right? And this is not the first song you're going to hear. You're going to hear that song in a minute. But the song just absolutely went right through me. You're going to hear it. It's going to be Mercy's second song. But I sent a message. It was a song actually co-written by a friend of mine, Melody Walker. And I sent her a message, and I said, hey, come do that song at church for us. And she's like, I can't. I'm busy. I'm too busy for you people. No, that's not what she said. That is not what she said. She said, I can't do it, but I think maybe Mercy, my co-writer, could possibly do it. And by golly, we got connected on social media. She showed up this morning. She's a delight. You're going to absolutely love her. So to get us started off, There she is. And by the way, go to all your Spotifys and your Apple Musics and stream Mercy's music. Mercy Bell, come on up and sing one song for us. How about that?
Thanks for being here this morning. The song is called Everything Changes. Hit the ground, and I never knew what you wanted from me. And I cried for days alone. In turn, I embraced the storm. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 Run aground, I'm guessing I knew what was coming for me. The tide and the waves were calm. In turn, I embrace the storm. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. And everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes my love. And everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes my love. And everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes my love. And everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes my love. And everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes my love. And everything changes. Everything changes. Everything changes my love. Thank you, everybody.
Good morning, Unity of Music City. How's everyone? Now the uncool part. Glasses. Most important piece. Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Happy almost May. Announcements for today. Oh, children dismissed. Thank you. See, you told me I would. Children and young adults. Now, hot flash. Man, y'all look good sitting out there. Y'all look really good. Turn the air down, please. It is. Oh, I forgot mine. All right, so the welcome team, these are the official announcements today. April the 30th, last day of April. The welcome team is still looking for greeters. You have to wear this, Deb says. Just saying, know what you're signing up for. All right, qualifications, people friendly, full of enthusiasm, be warm and full of smiles. Responsibilities, showing up 30 minutes before the service once a month. Stand near the door and greet people with a smile. Speak with Susan Hurt for more information, and Susan is right back there waving at us. All right, there will be a celebration of life service for Sherry Gentry on May the 6th at 1 o'clock at Unity of Nashville. There will also be a Sherry Gentry potluck celebration, and it's also a birthday celebration for the month of May. All right, that's following the service, May 7th, here at Wren Road. Laurie Green will be joining us to discuss her nonprofit Southern Alliance for People and Animal Welfare. South Paul? Save Paul. South Paul. All right. Save Paul is an organization that helps the houseless community and their pets. Join us in a celebration of Sherry and the animals she so loved. Please bring a dish to share. There's a membership orientation class forming for those interested in deepening your commitment to the spiritual community. Membership allows you to vote on official business and to step into leadership positions. Membership is open to adults 18 and older and for both in-person and or remote attendees. There will be 4 conference calls via Zoom during May and June, followed by a recognition Sunday. Simply submit a membership application found on the homepage of unityofmusiccity.com. Applications should be submitted by Monday, April 24th, so that the class schedule can be determined by the group. Call or text Valerie, back here waving, at 615-414-8899 for further questions. Full Moon Gathering, that's this coming Friday, May 5th at 7 p.m. Bring a chair, whatever brings you harmony, a drum, sage, crystals, etc. We'll build that fire. Crochet project for the NICU, the babies at Centennial Hospital, Thursday, May 11th at 6:30 here at Wren Road. Please text or call Tammy Say. And that is C. I knew that. My first impulse, I didn't go with it. 615-569-5698. She's right there, Tammy. Thank you. But text her for more information. Love Your Community Day, Saturday, May the 13th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Come work with us to clean up indoor and outdoor spiritual areas. Wear work gloves, clothes would be good. Wait a minute. Feathers. Let's have a productive, uplifting, and joyful day, improving our spiritual spaces. A planning meeting for what will be needed for this day will be held at the Sherry Potluck on May the 7th. So that would be discussing that on the 7th for the next week of the 13th. And that will be an amazing day. Deb, can I see you for just a second? Yeah, can I bring you up here just a second? You know, I don't have beads.
Julie's gone rogue, everyone.
But I just couldn't not share. So you already have one, but
Okay.
They're not beads, but there you go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I feel like I've been ordained in some sort of way.
Welcome to Crazy Land.
Good morning, Unity of Music City. Let's begin this portion of our service by taking a deep, centering breath. Today's centering statement is, I change my energy and I change my world. We have heard many times that change is consistent. It doesn't take a degree in molecular biology to understand that everything around us is in constant flux. And we might not see all of the changes because many of them exist at the cellular or atomic level, but they carry on regardless. In addition to its constant state of movement, energy just is. It exists. It cannot be created or destroyed. It can't disappear, and it cannot add to itself. Energy is perpetual, and it is always transforming. Think of water. You cannot get rid of the energy that is water. You can only change its form. As above, so below. In the same way that water can transmute into different forms, we can also change our energy in order to manifest the good that we desire. We can take the energy that we feel and channel it into productive work or creativity. All energy can be transformed. All energy manifests. Applying this law in our lives means that we have the power to change the conditions in our lives. Life doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice and change. The idea of perpetual motion is the idea behind one of our foundational teachings. Our thoughts and emotions are forms of our creative spiritual power. This spiritual power is the power to change our energy. Positive thoughts and forward motion are a powerful force. If we allow ourselves to be changed by the constant motion of positive energy, we will experience rapid shifts. And when we combine our high vibration with others, as in a spiritual community, we can move any energy into whatever we desire. And now repeat these affirmations after me. I am in charge of my energy, and I harness it for good. I am in charge of my energy, and I harness it for good. My thoughts and emotions are forms of my spiritual power. My thoughts and emotions are forms of my spiritual power. I embrace change and use it to become a better me. I embrace change and use it to become a better me. And so it is.
It's amazing, the synchronicity of this day, isn't it? We were talking about that earlier, and the fact that Ryan picked the centering statement that talks about how everything changes, and we know the power of our energy in the world, and with Ryan and the team out this week, we also miss the energy of music, right? Music is an energy that connects us and has a power, a spiritual power. And so we miss that in this moment. But at the same time, we're going to use this opportunity to just take our pure energy, unmanipulated by the music in this moment, into a meditative space, a meditative time of silence together. I invite you to close your eyes if that feels comfortable, and lower your shoulders. Let the tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Relax your jaw. Feel yourself supported by the chair beneath you. There's one thought that I want you to take into this meditative time today. And that thought is, I am absolutely perfect. The divine expression of me is not a mistake. Who I am, how I am, who I love, what I'm good at, all of those are pieces of the unique creation of me that the divine knew the world needed. And every voice that I hear that gives me anything other than complete acceptance, total celebration of me, those voices are wrong. I can choose to direct my energy elsewhere. Those don't get space in my energetic field. And in my life, I can actively look for those people whose support is unwavering, those places where I am completely accepted. I can seek them out. I can surround myself with that energy. But in the time of silence, I don't even need to worry about that. I know that my higher power, the Great Spirit, the Divine Mother, Father God, loves me completely, is so proud of the way I express, beams with joy when I show up as my authentic self. I was made in a divine image. And the way that I express that divinity is by fully expressing me. Just sit in that love for a moment, in the silence. Thank you, Spirit, for the reminder. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, for the constant knowing that we can carry with us through our life that we're okay, that all is well, life is good. We are truly blessed. Thank you for this community of people who actively and intentionally remind each other of all of these truths on a regular basis. Thank you for a place where we can come and be the full expression of our authentic self, whatever that looks like. So it is. And so it is, and so it is. And so, as you kind of sit in that moment, we're going to take a big old turn. The song that I heard on TikTok is a song called Am I giving it a spoiler alert if I give the title away? All right. It's a song called Jesus Was a Drag Queen. And our entire service today, if you could not have told by the person doing our announcements, is focused on this idea of full and complete expression and the divinity behind that. So Mercy, come on up, Mercy. Mercy and Melody wrote a song that absolutely I adore. And it goes right to the core. And get ready. If there are any words in this song you don't like, you can blame me because I have given full permission to use all of them. So Mercy, say whatever you need to say and have at it.
All right, I'm Mercy Bell, if you haven't figured that out by now. I just changed my strings last night, and they get really crotchety. All right. Jesus was a drag queen in a long dress, loving all his enemies, making a mess. And if he ever came back in his sandals and curls, they'd arrest him for dressing like a little girl. Jesus was a trans kid, your daughter or son, said they were a trinity, many in one, preaching from the mountain that love is a law, and God is just another word for the underdog. Jesus was a drag queen, hanging out with the whores and queers. So what you do for the least of these will bring the kingdom of heaven here. Jesus was a communist, giving away all the loaves and fishes in Galilee Bay, scolding all the rich folks that greed is a lie. It's like trying to fit a camel through a needle's eye. Jesus was a feminist, listened to all, didn't judge a Jezebel, let her stand tall. And on that Easter morning, he sought his best friend. The apostle of apostles was Magdalene. And Jesus was a drag queen, hanging out with the whores and queers. So what you do for the least of these will bring the kingdom of heaven here. Jesus was a radical, preached against hate, enemy to no one except for the state, practiced nonviolence, and maybe that's why old Judas made a deal and he was crucified. And Jesus was a drag queen, hanging out with the whores and queers. So what you do for the least of these will bring the kingdom of heaven here. you do for the least of these will bring the kingdom of heaven here. Will bring the kingdom of heaven here. Will bring the kingdom of heaven here. Thank you, everybody.
I love that song. I love that song. And I got to tell y'all, supposedly the official version of it will be out sometime in June, which is Pride Month. And so you're going to want to keep your eyes out for that. But what a fantastic song. So here is, I've been working on this talk for 6 weeks. I'm so excited about today, I can't even see straight. And I want you to be honest with yourself, because today, I think the way that we evolve is that we get really honest with ourselves. The best evolutionary moments for me are those times when all by myself, I look in the mirror and I say, now Loretta, because that's what I call my alter ego who doesn't get it, right? Now Loretta, be honest with yourself, right? And some of you might have even looked at the title of this talk or saw something that we put on social media and said, "Ooh, is that a little too far? Even for me, is that a little too far?" And that's okay. Your reactions are your reactions, and those are great indicators of where you still see other in the world. Those are great indicators of work that still needs to be done, because we all need to do some work, right? Especially those of us who think we're allies and we get it. We often have the most work to do because we think we already have got it. So yesterday I posted on our social media, I posted this right here. Jesus was a drag queen. If your response to that is yes, then you need to be at Unity of Music City this morning. And if your response to that is, what the, you need to be at Unity of Music City this morning. Because I knew there were going to be folks who were going to have some feelings around this, and we're going to have some pushback. And I want to tell you that this is a really personal talk for me. There are members of my family who I have to keep at a very long arm's length away. There was a time when I was younger when I didn't do that. I just let everybody in, and I thought, you know, it's going to be what it's going to be. But as I get older, I know to protect my energy a little bit more. And people do not get to bring intolerance of me into my personal space, period. And if that's family, whoever that is, they don't get to do that. We can be sweet to each other from a distance. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I'm not going to be unkind. But I also get to be protective. This is also a personal talk for our spiritual community today. There are more and more churches all the time that are relaxing their prejudice and discrimination against the LGBTQ community. But for years, especially back in the 90s when I first started coming to Unity, I remember there were many years when our particular community, especially after we painted the front of our church purple over there in Old Hickory, when we were called that gay church, right? People who knew about us, had just heard about us, said, oh yeah, that's that gay church. We weren't that gay church. That's not who we are. That's not who we've ever been. We've never, you know what? Let me just tell you something. We don't keep track of your sexual orientation. We don't have that listed on a spreadsheet anywhere. It's none of our business, right? We got, oh, look at, she switches over to this column. Okay, there we go. That's your business. That's not ours. But for years and years and years, a lot of people in the LGBTQ community who wanted to have an experience of the sacred, who wanted to continue their faith journey, they simply had nowhere to go. I know this because the church of my youth didn't want to have anything to do with this very important part of my authentic self. And I could not engage in a spiritual journey without being my authentic self. I couldn't do it. So I had to leave, right? And so our church I tell you, one of the things I am always grateful for, I'm grateful for all those years when Unity of Music City was considered the gay church. What I really am grateful for are all those straight cisgendered people who kept coming anyway, who hung out anyway, right? They didn't have, they weren't bothered by it. They weren't bothered by it. I think about Dave Harrison, one of the first people I met. Let me tell you something. If there's any straight man in tune with his feminine side, it's Dave Harrison right there, right? He understands, he knows. And so this is a very important part of our own spiritual community's journey. And even still, there is work for us to do. For a lot of people, let's be honest, for a lot of people, their willingness to fully accept gays and lesbians sometimes does not always fully translate to the trans community, right? It's a bigger jump for whatever reason. It's a bigger leap for some folks. I know folks who've considered themselves allies for years who'll still say, but you know, I don't really understand that, right? I remember the very first time I ever saw a trans person. Now, there's a joke buried in that any trans person will know, and that is, you've seen a whole lot of trans people you didn't know were trans people, right? But the very first time I knew that I was encountering someone who was transgender, oddly, was at Unity of Nashville, right, in the early 90s. So I love the long tradition that Unity has of welcoming all. And I remember, this was many, many years ago, I remember being a young baby lesbian and thinking to myself, I don't know how I feel about that. It was a new thing. It wasn't as socially talked about in those days. And I didn't know how I felt about that. But here's the good thing. Whenever you're faced with that kind of situation, there's always this option. Just keep quiet and observe. There is always that option, right? Just keep quiet and observe. But what about those folks who just can't go there? I mean, aren't we supposed to be tolerant of those people? I mean, those folks sitting over there in the Baptist church this morning, in the Church of Christ, and wherever they're sitting. I'm not just blanketly. There are some affirming Baptist churches, by the way. But what about those folks who say, listen, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this because that's a bridge too far. Agree to disagree is reserved for things like, I don't like coffee. Not racism, homophobia, sexism, not basic common decency, not human rights. Not the right to be treated equally regardless of race, religion, color, creed, sexual orientation, or gender identity. In those instances, we do not have a difference of opinion, we have a difference in morality. And this is at the core of this idea. Where do we draw the line and accept other people's view of the world? We accept other people's view of the world as long as it does not diminish me or other people. The writer James Baldwin said it best when he said, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and my right to exist. Then we have a problem, right? Let me suggest to you that if you are not someone who is the target of oppression, if you have never felt anyone deny your humanity, and I have had someone say that to me. I have had someone look right at me and say that gays and lesbians aren't human. And right now, we're hearing a lot of rhetoric about the transgender community, that trans people have mental illness, that trans people aren't really human, right? We're hearing all kinds of dangerous rhetoric about the people in this community. Let me suggest to you, if you are not a person who has ever felt that kind of oppression or that denial of your humanity, please don't tell those who are that they just need to love. Please don't tell them that. It's kind of a spiritual Stockholm syndrome, right? Stockholm syndrome is where the oppressed develop a psychological bond with their oppressor. The person who's been kidnapped falls in love with their kidnapper, right? And it is a serious condition. And we don't do any favors when we say, listen, oh, you're being oppressed, you know, you just gotta love, just gotta show up in love. Don't talk to me about my experience. Let my experience be my experience, and don't tell me what to do. That is a problem, all right? When it comes to acceptance and non-acceptance, now this is, I'm gonna bring you home with this. Trust me on this. I'm gonna bring you home because we believe in oneness. We believe in unity here. But when it comes to acceptance and non-acceptance of human beings, there are two sides. There's a yin and there's a yang. This is a forces for good and forces for not so good kind of situation. If there was no darkness, there would be no need for light workers. If there was no darkness, there would be no need for candles, right? So there is some darkness in the world, and there are people who are actively, vocally, loudly telling people they're not accepted. Both sides of this equation, whether you see this equation as political or spiritual or ideological, or they're all the same. Both sides argue that theirs is the moral position. The difference is that one side's morality is based in exclusion, and the other side's morality is based in inclusion. And we very clearly state in the description of who we are that our morality is a morality of inclusion here. Last year, in a talk I gave, I talked about the paradox of tolerance, which was a concept that the psychologist Karl Popper introduced many decades ago. And that paradox of tolerance is that in order to maintain a tolerant society, the society must be intolerant of tolerance. In other words, if a so-called tolerant society permits the existence of intolerant philosophies, it is no longer tolerant. It has allowed itself to become intolerant, right? Thus, to be truly tolerant, you have to be a little intolerant. You know that little black dot in the white side of the yin-yang, right? You got to have that little dot of saying, this is where we draw the line. This is where the boundary is. And that's a paradox. It messes with our heads because we like our spiritual truths, the truths with a capital T, to be absolute, and they never change, and it's always true. And we can't deal with exceptions very well, right? Doesn't our inclusion that we preach about, that we stand for, doesn't that have to extend to the excluders if we want to be truly inclusive? So this paradox of tolerance, paradox is a word that basically means two things are seemingly diametrically opposed and yet somehow both true, right? At the same time. I love paradoxes. I live in a paradox all the time. My spirituality is one of paradoxes constantly. But I saw this the other day, which helps explain it a little bit. The paradox of tolerance disappears if you look at tolerance not as a moral standard, but as a social contract. If someone does not abide by the terms of the contract, then they're not covered by it. In other words, the intolerant are not following the rules of the social contract of mutual tolerance. And since they've broken the terms of the contract, they're no longer covered by the contract, and their intolerance should not be tolerated. If I say to you, you mow my lawn, I'll pay you $50. And then 3 weeks goes by and my lawn is up to my knees. And I meet you in the street and I go, hey, and you're like, hey, where's my $50? I'd be like, you didn't mow my lawn. I would have no hesitation saying that. You broke the contract. You didn't mow the lawn. I don't pay you $50, right? It doesn't make you less tolerant to be intolerant of intolerance. It means that you've recognized that someone has broken the social contract. Someone has broken the agreement, and therefore it's the agreement that must be broken. A few weeks ago, right after the Covenant School tragedy, I made a TikTok, because that's what I do. That's my side job, by the way, making TikToks. I made a TikTok about a colleague of mine at work and I, sitting down. We're very different. We're diametrically opposed on so many things, different religiously, different spiritually, all this different politically, and how we sat down and just kind of connected with each other. I wanted to check in with her and see how she was doing. And I ended that video by saying, when people agree to come together in basic kindness and mutual respect, we can overcome a lot of differences. And a lot of people who responded to that idea of kindness and mutual respect, but to me the important word was agree. That at the very beginning, the first thing that has to happen is that we're in agreement, that that's how we're going to treat each other, right? And if you're not in agreement, then I'm not just going to come just shower you with, all this. I'll just walk away. I'll just walk away in that moment if I have to. When I talked about the paradox of tolerance last year, I quoted Reverend Eston Williams, who said, at the end of the day, I'd rather be excluded for who I include than included for who I exclude. And a lot of ministers in traditional denominations are having to ask this question of themselves in the mirror right now. They're having to think really hard about who they're going to be and how they're going to stand up and where do they draw the line. Because here's the truth of the matter. You probably don't even have to make the call on whether people have violated the tolerance agreement or not. When they see who you include, they'll just exclude you. It'll be guilt by association. You've been placed on a side even if you didn't willingly take one just because you were kind. Maybe you wanted to be a bridge. You saw yourself as being a bridge between hate and love. And I'm going to say something that's going to maybe feel a little controversial to a unity congregation that believes in oneness and inclusion. But there's no bridge over that river. You have to decide what bank you stand on. You can't find the midpoint of the bridge and say, I'm going to reach a hand of love over here to these haters while I'm still holding on to the people I love over here. From the perspective of the bank, both sides see you as standing on the other. The best thing that we can do is to stand firmly on the side of love and shine our light so bright, shine our love so bright, shine our joy and our peace so bright that some will see it, and will say, I want to go where the light is. I'd rather live in the light, right? Because love is our theology here. Love is our religion, and whether we access that love through a Jesus who hangs out with sinners, or a Buddha who teaches us how to be better through mindfulness and presence, or a Krishna who symbolizes the vital relationship between love and compassion, we always come back to love. True love, the love of full acceptance. No matter who we see as God, Jehovah, the universe, Gaia, our higher self, Brahma, the Great Spirit, Allah, God, we know one thing for certain. You cannot treat people like garbage and worship God at the same time. You just can't do it. A lot of people try. A lot of people are doing that because they're unaware. They're unaware that they're doing it. They're simply not aware. What about those people who still don't understand? What about those people like us who see ourselves as allies and say, I still just don't quite get it? Maybe in your heart of hearts right now, you're thinking to yourself, thank God she can't read my mind, because I still have questions. I still don't know. I'm still not sure. I hear these voices and it sounds like they make sense, and then I hear these voices and they sound like they make sense. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm an ally. I've been an ally for years. It's part of my identity. I went to a lesbian wedding, right? I probably went to my preacher's lesbian wedding last summer. But I'm not sure I get this transgender thing. What about this non-binary thing? I don't even know what that is. People are coming up with new words and I don't get it, and the world is passing me by. I've got good news for you. You don't have to get it. You don't have to get it to be an ally. You don't have to get it to be an advocate. You don't have to understand to stand up for other people's rights. Here's a friendly reminder that you don't need to fully understand the nuances of gender identity to know that each individual person knows who they are better than you ever will. Now, I'm not here just to educate you on this stuff today. I have only limited ability to do that. But I do know that you can stand up for the rights of people, even when you don't understand their lived experience. You can just trust them. That's an option. You can just trust them. You might say, well, I'm probably going to make a mistake. I mean, I might say the wrong thing. I'll probably blunder. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. Here's an idea. Ask them. If you encounter someone who is transgender and you are not, and you're not sure that you're very comfortable with what to do, try this. Hello. It's nice to meet you. I want to be certain that I treat you with respect, but I'm not sure I fully know how. Will you please let me know if there's any language or behavior I can use that would be more respectful to you? Let me tell you what is going to happen. You will have just made a new friend, and they have maneuvered this life far more than you have. They know themselves more than you do. Fully qualified to tell you how they want to be treated. Fully qualified to let you know what to call them. And you know what? If you mess up, they'll know you're trying. People mess up all the time. I'll have transgender students in my classroom, and I mess up all the time, and the best I can do is say, I am so sorry. And they'll go, it's cool. Thank you for being sorry. Thank you for caring enough to be sorry. A lot of people say, I don't get this pronoun business. I never had to use pronouns. In a sentence that started with one, right? They and them is plural. Let me tell you something. Ain't a person in here who's going to struggle with that more than this English professor right here. And if I can do it, so can you, right? If I can do it, so can you. As a matter of fact, you might say, it's just hard for me to use they, them pronouns because it's like plural. Cheryl, you used the word staycation last week. You understand language evolving. Language does evolve, and this isn't even a big evolution. William Shakespeare used the singular they in his writing. And you've already been doing this. You've already been referring to people by what they prefer to be referred to. Hulk Hogan's real name is Terry. Terry Jean. John Wayne's first name was Marion. Karen Elaine Johnson's mother didn't look into her precious little face on the day of her birth and say, I think I'm going to call her Whoopi Goldberg. And I've got really bad news for you Lady Gaga fans. Right? Stephanie Germanotta has never won a Grammy Award, but Lady Gaga has. We are well practiced at referring to people in the way they choose to identify. Saying it's hard is an excuse that does not hold water. Now, this doesn't mean you won't make mistakes. It just means that you'll admit it when you do, and you'll try again, right? I love this sign on a Lutheran church in Victoria, British Columbia. This idea of connecting they, them with the Creator, the multiplicity of the divine Creator of the universe. He, him with the Son, she, her with the Holy Spirit. There was a recent article in Sojourners magazine. The title of the article was, Actually, They is a Beautiful Pronoun for God. They beautifully sums up the many facets of God. Whether it's the Trinity of Christianity, the countless avatars of Hinduism, the many names of Jehovah in Judaism, the millions of expressions of the Great Spirit in our natural world. All religious ideologies seem to coalesce around this idea of a multiplicity within a oneness, a variety within a unity, a plural within a singular. 2 weeks ago, I spoke about abundance, and I used this verse right here, Luke 6:38. Give, and it will be given unto you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. That last phrase, the measure you use, it will be measured unto you, is found 3 times in the canonized Gospels. It's in Matthew, it's in Mark, and it's in Luke. It's not in John because he was always doing his own thing, whatever. This version from Luke is often used as a primary scripture in prosperity circles, prosperity talks, but they often lop off what comes right before. Because the verse before says this, Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given unto you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. For with the measure you use, it will be measured unto you. Now let me tell you, in English professor land, this is what we call rhetorically connected, right? There's a single rhetorical thread running through that. And what that means is that the writer meant all of that to go together. This is one paragraph. And that summary at the end, for with the measure you use, it will be measured unto you, doesn't just talk about your giving. It talks about your judging and your condemning and your forgiving as well. To what degree are you able to step into that energy? That's the energy you're going to get back to the same measure. The version that's found in the 4th chapter of Mark marries these two ideas together in the same kind of way. But Matthew skips right past the financial abundance part, and he just says, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. How do we put this in the affirmative? How do we say, thou shalt not judge, in the affirmative? Accept, love, welcome. It is the theology of inclusion that is the theology of non-judgment. One way to recognize the intolerant among us, the judgmental, is that they actively look for ways to turn plowshares into swords. The book of Isaiah tells us that we should turn our swords into plowshares and study war no more, that we should take the swords, the weapons of war, and beat them down and make them something that can feed people. And when we actively see people turning those plowshares back into weapons of war, we know that there's a judgment happening there. And this often shows up first as the weaponization of words. We're going to weaponize these words against you and misuse them against others. The term currently most often being turned into a sword is a single word: woke. You've probably heard it. Before we talk about the word woke, we need to honor where it came from. Woke is a word that comes to us from African American vernacular English. It goes back all the way to the 1930s. In 1938, Huddie Ledbetter, also known as Leadbelly, the great blues musician, recorded a song called Scottsboro Boys about the 9 black teenagers who were falsely accused of raping 2 white women. And there's some spoken words of Leadbelly's at the end of that recording, and he says, I advise everybody when they go along through there, best stay woke. Keep their eyes open. And that's the first time we have a recording of the term stay woke. And then, of course, I believe Childish Gambino recorded another song, probably about 2010 or so. And in the 2010s, the term emerged again strongly, used by anti-racist advocates in regard to things like police brutality and systemic racism. And it also spread to include a broader umbrella of progressive policies and human rights issues. And then around 2020, the word started being weaponized by people who neither fully understood it nor understood the people or the lives behind it. As it evolved, its meaning today is perhaps better expressed in this way. And I say this carefully because even though I'm going to give you a new definition of this word, I never want us to forget that this is where it came from. This word belongs to African American culture, and we owe them for bringing it to us. Here's a definition that tends to go along with the way we use it today. Woke means awakened to the needs of others, to be well informed, thoughtful, compassionate, humble, and kind, eager to make the world a better place for all people. In case there is ever any question in your mind, let it be on the recording that you can go back and watch again. This minister is woke, or trying to be, and this ministry is woke. This is a ministry of inclusion. It is a ministry awakened to the needs of others, striving to be well-informed, thoughtful, compassionate, humble, and kind. We're eager to make the world a better place for all people. I'm currently reading a book right now called Search by Michelle Hunovan. Now, before you start thinking, oh, my minister is so deep and spiritual, she's always reading books and bringing us all this incredible stuff, it's a novel. All right, it's a novel, but it happens to be a novel about a Unitarian Universalist church, and it's centered around their search committee for a new minister. It's a fantastic little book. It's got some real gems in it, and one of the gems was this one that I read this week. How do we live in and change a reality that includes climate change, mass shootings, and racism? How do we address income inequality, sexual predation, mass incarceration? By not turning away, by engaging, by cultivating kindness and compassion, by seeking justice, by loving the earth, and by tending the great interconnected web of life of which we are all a part. Either she has read our belief statements, or we might be a closeted Unitarian Universalist church. I'm not sure. Maybe this is ours to do, is to tend our corner of the web of life, to repair it when needed, to reconnect it when we can, to recognize when some would try to harm it, and to rush to defend and protect the vulnerable. There's another quote I got from her this week, and it goes like this: salvation occurs whenever a helping hand is extended, whenever truth is spoken to power. When we advocate for others, stand for their inclusion, insist on their humanity, we bring salvation. I've known too many students of mine on the verge who have told me how vitally important it was to have just one voice of acceptance ringing in their ear, one person in their corner, just one act of kindness letting them know that they were safe. That made all the difference. It was their salvation. The Jesus that I know spoke a whole lot more about this kind of salvation than the kind we've attributed to him. He always moved toward the vulnerable, and the only people he judged were people who thought they deserved to be the judges. If you've ever had the pleasure of meeting a drag queen, of knowing the incredible degree of acceptance and encouragement, confidence and love that they just seem to have in spades, then you know a little bit what it felt like to meet Jesus of Galilee. I'm sure, Kedrick's the only child in here, he's heard this before, I'm sure there's a bitchy little drag queen running around somewhere. But I haven't met her. It's a kind of magic that seems to happen when the makeup and the wig and the heels go on. They become beams of light, shining love and celebration and joy on everyone around them. And we're passing laws against that. To say that Jesus was a drag queen is not only to emphasize how the Christ in him is the same Christ that shines through all of us, drag queens and non-drag queens alike. Whether you're a drag queen or a feminist or whoever running around, there's a Christ in you, namaste, that can behold the Christ in all of us. It doesn't just mean that. To say that Jesus was a drag queen is also to recognize the infinite capacity that he has to shine love on us all. You see, it's not a compliment to drag queens. It's a compliment to Jesus. Without condition, without reservation, without expectation, just shining love. Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, who wrote Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, said, when you feel the oneness of everything, you naturally don't want to harm anything or anyone. You want to shine the light of love on all. You want to be a stone catcher, not a stone thrower. You want to follow a religion of inclusion, and you want to live a theology of love. To close this service, we're going to do the prayer for protection, and then there might be a brief dance party. I'm not sure. But I invite you to stand up, if you will, and speak this along with me. I've included a new word. You'll see that. It's an idea spreading beyond these walls. It's not just us that the light of God shines on. It is us all. Say it with me. The light of God surrounds us all. The love of God enfolds us all. The power of God protects us all. The presence of God watches over us all. Wherever we all are, God is, and all is well. Play.